With just hours to go before the midnight government shutdown, the House approved a new plan from House Speaker Mike Johnson that would temporarily fund federal operations and disaster aid, but dropped the President-elect Donald Trump's demands for a debt limit increase into the new year. The vote followed a dramatic turn of events in which President-elect Trump and his billionaire boyfriend Elon Musk derailed a bipartisan agreement at the last minute, igniting tensions within the Republican Party. The revised bill, now headed to the Senate, provides temporary funding to maintain federal operations at current levels and includes $100 billion in disaster relief and $10 billion in aid for farmers. The internal Republican discord in the year's final days foreshadowed the turbulence expected when Trump returns to the White House on January 20th. A government shutdown, narrowly avoided, could have furloughed thousands of federal workers and disrupted holiday travel. The last shutdown occurred in December 2018 during Trump's first term.
House Democrats have successfully funded the government at levels requested by President Biden in order to meet the needs of the American people in terms of their health, safety, and economic well-being. House Democrats have successfully fought for families, farmers, first responders, and the future of working-class Americans. House Democrats have successfully fought for $100 billion in disaster assistance in order to make sure that those everyday Americans whose lives have been turned upside down in terms of hurricanes, storms, tornadoes, wildfires, floods, and other extreme weather events can get the assistance that they need to address the problems they've been confronting. House Democrats have successfully stopped extreme MAGA Republicans from shutting down the government, crashing the economy, and hurting working-class Americans all across the land. House Democrats have successfully stopped the Billionaire Boys Club, which wanted a $4 trillion blank check, by suspending the debt ceiling in order to enable them to cut Social Security, cut Medicare, and cut nutritional assistance while providing massive tax breaks for the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected. This is a victory for the American people. We have successfully advanced the needs of everyday Americans, but there are still things to be worked on, and we look forward to that fight in the new year.
The initial bipartisan bill, crafted by House Republicans and Democrats, was met with sharp criticism from Elon Musk, the world's richest man, who spent over $250 million helping to get Donald Trump elected. Musk condemned the spending bill as outrageous and called for voters to oust any lawmaker who backed it. In response, House Speaker Mike Johnson introduced a revised, stripped-down budget proposal that included a new demand from Trump, suspending the debt ceiling. Trump viewed the move as a way to avoid a contentious fiscal battle in his early months in office while Joe Biden was still president. Democrats denounced the new proposal as a veiled tax break for wealthy supporters like Musk, accusing it of adding trillions to the national debt. Several Republicans also opposed the plan, outraged by the provision to lift borrowing limits. The bill ultimately failed in a 174 to 235 vote, marking a significant defeat for the disgraced former President Trump. This week's political turmoil highlighted cracks in Trump's influence over the Republican Party. Despite his fervent push for the bill, including threats to back primary challengers against dissenting Republicans, his efforts fell short. Earlier today, Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House press secretary, launched a blistering attack on Republicans for their handling of the budget crisis. Republicans blew up this deal, they did, and they need to fix this, period, she told reporters. Republicans need to stop playing politics with the government shutdown. They're doing the bidding of their billionaire friends. That's what we're seeing at the expense of hard-working Americans. While Jean-Pierre didn't name specific individuals, her comments appear to be referencing Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, who had publicly opposed the earlier bipartisan spending deal that was ultimately abandoned at Donald Trump's urging. This is a mess that they created, and they need to fix it, Jean-Pierre said. A U.S. government shutdown occurs when Congress fails to fund the federal government by a specific deadline, in this case, December 20th at midnight. More specifically, the terms of a piece of legislation known as the Anti-Deficiency Act passed in 1884 prohibits federal agencies from spending or obligating funds without an act of appropriation or some alternative form of approval from Congress. Thousands of federal government employees are put on furlough, meaning they're told not to report for work and go unpaid for the period of the shutdown. Their salaries are paid retroactively when it ends, meaning they work without pay for weeks or even months. Other government workers who perform what are deemed essential services, such as air traffic controllers and law enforcement officials, continue to work but do not get paid until Congress acts to end the shutdown. On Tuesday this week, Little Mike Johnson unveiled a bipartisan agreement that would have extended government funding until March, which included assistances for farmers, hurricane relief, and a small pay rise for members of Congress. But Trump and Musk scuttled the deal in part by spreading lies about the original plan. The rejection of the spending bill on Thursday night showed that Trump's grip on the Republican Party is not quite as ironclad as initially thought. The president-elect had furiously urged the package to be passed, including threatening to primary any Republicans who opposed it, but a faction of Republican lawmakers on the right, outraged by lifting government borrowing limits, rebelled. Kamala Harris canceled a planned trip to Los Angeles with Washington on the verge of the shutdown. Harris had been scheduled to travel to her home state late on Thursday, but instead canceled that to remain in the capital, along with President Joe Biden, who had planned to leave for Delaware. With members of Congress itching to leave Washington for the holidays, and Republicans wary of being blamed for shuttering critical federal operations just days before Christmas, there was a strong desire to avoid a protracted shutdown. Top Trump aides were furiously calling journalists to insist that Elon Musk had been following the orders of Trump rather than the other way round. As predicted, Trump is horrified and enraged at the idea that Elon Musk is now seen as the unofficial president of the United States. Meanwhile, Musk has caused outrage in Berlin after appearing to endorse the far-right anti-immigrant alternative für Deutschland. Musk, who has been named by Donald Trump to co-lead this commission aimed at reducing the size of the federal government, wrote on his social media platform X, "Only the AfD can save Germany." Europe's largest economy is expected to go to the polls on the 23rd of February after the collapse last month of Olaf Scholz's centre-left coalition. The AfD is running in second place in opinion polls. Elements of the party have been classed as right-wing extremists by Germany's domestic intelligence services, and mainstream parties have vowed to refuse to work with the AfD at a national level. It's part of Musk's plan to use his great wealth to bring his brand of far-right politics to the rest of Europe, doing Vladimir Putin's bidding, perhaps, after spending an insane amount of money on the United States election. Trump this week has warned the EU that it will face trade tariffs on its exports to the US unless its member states buy more American oil and gas. He reignited fears of a looming trade war between the US and the EU in his first public statement regarding trade since he was elected president in November. And after ringing the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange on Thursday, Trump stopped short of telling investors to buy more stock as he gets set to take office. He said, "I don't want to get into a situation where they do and we have a dip or something, because that can always happen." And within hours, US stocks tumbled to one of their worst days of the year, the longest losing streak since Jimmy Carter was in the White House. Donald Trump bringing his unique brand of chaos to every market that he inhabits. And with further news today that Donald Trump has transferred all of his nearly 115 million shares, worth around $4 billion, of the Trump Media and Technology Group that owns Truth Social into a revocable trust. Trump shares amount to more than half of the company's stock. It's not clear why Trump transferred the stock. Donald Trump Jr. is the sole trustee and has sole voting and investment power over all securities owned by the trust. Trump Media shares were down around 2% at midday, at $34.68 each. At one point on Friday, they were down around 6%. Trump created Trump Media after he was banned from Twitter and Facebook following the January 6, 2021 insurrection, for which he still has not been held responsible. I'm Anthony Davis. You can find me on the 5 Minute News YouTube channel and podcast, on Wednesdays co-hosting Uncovered, and on Sunday on The Weekend Show with MeidasTouch.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.